In India, sex is still a taboo.
Big taboo. Like shame.
Like what?
The girls would be put in one corner, the boys in one corner, and then education would happen. Why?
What are some common questions that they are afraid to ask?
Young girls, when they come to me, they're like, Doctor, if we ever become sexually active, will a man know looking at my vagina that I've had sex? If I don't talk about this, who's going to? Vagina owners don't know what a vagina is.
The World Health Organization mentions that worldwide, 1 out of 6 people have issues with subfertility.
Smoking is one of the leading causes of infertility in men and women both.
So do you see that the quality of the sperm is declining?
Yes, severely because of the there's something known as egg freezing. Cryopreservation, just how you put money in the FD for your old age, freeze your eggs.
Tell us what's the cost?
Indian rupees. What frustrates me the most is silencing women till today.
What do you mean?
So I'll tell you honestly.
In India, sex is still a taboo, right?
Big taboo.
And what's the impact today in the current sexual health of the population in India, of that taboo?
So I'll tell you a very small thing. When we were taught, so as doctors, you're taught how to take a history.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you ask the patient certain relevant questions so that you can get a gist of what their problem is. They call it leading questions. So it used to be name, age, sex, occupation, religion, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And marital status, married or unmarried. And I also would ask that because I was taught that. Now, for the first time when I sat down in front of a patient who was an 18-year-old girl, looked very fidgety, scared to tell me about the problem that she was facing. I was about to, because you become like a parrot. You'll just say what you've learned. So I was about to ask her and I was like, I know she's unmarried first of all. Yet I want to ask her this question because I only care whether she's sexually active or not.
Yeah.
That was the reason you asked that question. Now, back in the day, a patient would get angry if you would ask an unmarried girl, are you sexually active? Times have changed and so do we have to evolve. So I just looked at her and then I asked her, are you sexually active? And she didn't know, and she just started looking here and there and she was like, oh my God, if I'll say yes, she's going to judge me, she's going to give me a lecture. If I say no, I'll be lying. I've come here because I'm scared I have a sexually transmitted infection. Then I told her, I said, look, I don't care about it. It's just because so that I can give you the right treatment. Because if you're sexually active, there are certain tests that I'll run you through, there's certain medication that I'll give you. If you're not sexually active, then I'll rule that cause out and I'll think of something else. She became a little comfortable. So she's told me, yes, I'm a little sexually active, okay? So I said, okay. Is it one partner? Is it multiple partners? Again, now she said, now this 100% this woman is sitting here to judge me. And I could tell because her expression then, changed. Again, I said, if you have multiple partners, you're going to be at risk to certain things. I just want to narrow down my research because I don't want to put you through too many tests also. You have limited money, you have limited time. So I want to, whatever little I can rule out from my history, I want to so that I can give you only say 1 or 2 tests. I can only give you certain amount of medication. We both save time and money and you don't get irritated with this doctor who's given you a long list of things to do. Then she got comfortable. Then she said, you're not going to judge me. I'm 18. I'm not even married. So I said, it's okay. I don't care. She said, the last doctor I went to, I had UTI, urinary tract infection, which can happen because of a sexual encounter, can happen because of multiple other things. But apparently the gynecologist there told her that you've gotten a UTI at such a young age and should I call your mother and should I tell her? And these are real life incidences. And I am sitting here all for the doctor. So it's not like I'm talking against my community.
Yeah.
In fact, when I joined this community, I was very angry against one influencer who'd spoken against judgmental gynecologists. And I was like, how can you be so stereotypical? Not all gynecologists are judgmental. And yet when I came into private practice, I realized the biggest trauma or the biggest step that a patient faced when it came to sexual health or seeking medical assistance when it came to sexual problems was being judged by the professional who's sitting there.
Shit. Yeah.
And that is one thing I kid you not, I'm struggling with till date. There are so many times because I talk about a lot of supposed controversial topics on my page, which, trust me, are not controversial at all, because they come from the questions that have been asked from my patients or from an Instagram user from an unknown account, because he or she is too scared to ask it with a face. Do you know the biggest challenge that I faced is from the gynecologists of my community when they saw me talking openly about, say, whether there's a reel of mine that had gone viral about whether it is safe to swallow semen or not. The amount of backlash I got from the gynaec community. She's a gynecologist. She's running a hospital. There's a certain decorum she has to maintain. How can she talk about this? Really? If I don't talk about this, who's going to?
Yeah.
Because I'm the only one who knows exactly what follows if you've not done the correct tests, what are the infections that you can get, what is the thing that cannot happen.
If you can share from one of your patients, what has been one of the most bizarre stories that you got?
I'll tell you a very simple story, and yet something that I see so often now. When I initially started my practice, there would be females who would walk up and say, we've been in a relationship for 6 years, 7 years, married for 7 years, 10 years, and we've not been able to have any form of penetrative intercourse. There is no way that they knew how to consummate their relationship, and they blame themselves. They were like, there's something wrong with our body. And there's something known as vaginismus, which is a psychological condition which affects you anatomically, wherein the opening just doesn't open up and there's no penetration possible. So you need gynecological support, you need psychological support for it, and you won't believe it, over 10% of my patients suffer from vaginismus, and they are not even aware. Now the awareness is increasing. Now people have started talking about it. Earlier it was such a taboo that the woman would just feel, okay, it's my fault and I can't talk about it. So when I started my practice, I thought this was just something that I'd read in the books. It doesn't exist, Because if you have a problem like this, why won't you go and talk to your doctor? But that is what we get with education and empowerment. But the country that I belong to, and in India, most of the women still are struggling with that. And hence, such a small thing is such a huge thing. So I would use the word bizarre for it, because when the patient came to me and sat in front of me, I was like, you've been suffering for it for 7 years. Why did you wait for me? She said, because you were the first doctor who spoke about it on Instagram. And you said the word vaginismus. I didn't even know it existed. And then I realized, oh, it's not a problem with my body. A lot of women suffer from it, and there is a cure for it. There is therapy for it. There's counseling for it. There are methods in which we can deal with it. And that's why I'm here.
Wow. And what's the reason for that, the main reason for that to
so
happen?
it could be multiple things. The commonest being, it's childhood trauma sometimes. So as a child, maybe you were exposed to your first sexual interaction wasn't pleasant. Now, whether it was forced, or whether you were not ready for it, or you got scared, or somebody told you a story, and you just become extremely fearful of it. And the first time that you go eventually to have that sexual experience, you've not spoken enough to your partner. You've not explored your body. Hence, self-exploration, self-love becomes so important. And then you're scared. You're just scared of what will happen. So your mind plays such as just how you lift your hand up.
Yeah.
This is a voluntary action. That one is an involuntary one, but it's controlled by the mind. And the muscles of your vagina constrict so much that there's nothing that can penetrate.
Yeah.
And that is what is called as vaginismus. Now, sometimes there could be an actual problem there. So maybe there's basically the hymen is too thick, there's an imperforate hymen, or the passage is too narrow. And then we can operate on it, we can create that passage. For that, obviously the gynaec will tell you, and we can do a checkup. But 80% of the times, there's no anatomical problem, and it's all psychological. And you need your gynecologist and your therapist to work hand in hand with you. Of course, your partner, but mostly yourself. So I tell all my patients with vaginismus, you cannot expect your partner to help you in the initial few months. It has to be you with your body, what comforts you, what do you like. And then your partner can come. So it's basically you and your support system.
So women that now they are watching, and if they have that, what is the first thing that they can do?
Come to a gynecologist. Be sure that it's not your fault.
Yeah.
Know that you're not alone in it. In fact, vaginismus is increasing with the current generation because the stress levels are increasing so much. Also, unfortunately, I feel this generation, the generation that we've come to now as adults, as children, we were really, really bullied. We weren't allowed to speak, especially in India. We weren't allowed to tell if there was, we were faced with some kind of problem or we were facing a mental issue.
Yeah.
Because of which we have to deal with it now and today. So right now also the biggest step that you take is go and seek that professional help. Come and sit in front of the gynecologist. Let him or her decide whether you need therapy, whether you need intervention, whether you need some other form of, counseling, you need certain medication, whatever it is. We've been trained. We spent 12 to 13 years just training about this. So we'll definitely be able to help you with that.
Okay. So it's not a problem of the person. There's a solution for that.
Yes.
So it's about seeking help.
Correct.
And then going a journey. And then at some point also the partner will come
also
on the journey. But what is
yes.
interesting, you spoke a lot that of course even this generation, there's a lot of traumas coming from childhood. How is that impacting today the current sexual health situation in India?
So can I tell you something? As in my first formative years of school, I don't think any of us in India have received any form of sexual education. The first time in school I was told about a period, a menstrual cycle, was 2 years after I got one. So I already had gone through the journey of menarche. I'd already gotten my period. I was lucky enough, I belonged to a family of doctors. My mother did not speak to me about my period, but my father did. Because he was like, he needs to tell me what a menstrual cycle is. I grew up with 2 brothers and we had a very open conversation. So at the age of 7, when I asked my mother when she carried a pad in the house, I said, what is this? And before she could cover up and say something, my dad sat me down and he said it's a sanitary napkin. And then he explained things to me. Roles reversed, in today's generation, I was in a doctor's family, 7-year-old son. I walked in with a packet of sanitary napkins. I had come from the supermarket. He asked me, what is this? And I said, it's a sanitary napkin. The mother, being a doctor herself, screamed in anger and said, no, don't. And I said, he's just 7. I said, yes,
okay.
But did you react like this when a 7-year-old asks what, say, a diaper is? It's as basic as that. Why do you have to think of anything? No, so she said, no, but if you have to explain to him what a menstrual cycle is, it'll eventually come into reproduction. Reproduction will come into sexual things. It's all a bad thing to tell the child. And I said, no, it's about me. How would have I explained it to that child? As a conscious adult, I will know how much information to give to that child at what age to fulfill his curiosity, because now when he got screamed at for that sanitary napkin, he's definitely going to go and try and find out from somewhere.
100%.
That source is not going to be as secure, as educated and as sane as a source which would have told him, from the horse's mouth what it is. And that is what happened in our schools. We were never told what sexual education is. So I remember I was 15 when my cousin asked me, do you know what is sex? And I did not know at the age of 15. But I wanted to pretend to be cool. So I said yes.
Okay.
And then, you know how a 15-year-old and an 18-year-old would have a conversation. He told me some whatever his ideology of sex was, because even he knew little. And then that grossed me out so much that for 1 year, I would look at every uncle and auntie, every relative, mom and dad, and be like, oh, this person is also that dirty. They also must be, because I did not know any better.
Wow.
And now when I look back and I'm like, I wish when I was in that curious age, 9, 10, 11, and little by little, if I, along with my male friends, we were educated together. Another very strange thing that schools do. Even, I don't know if things have changed now. When I was in school, we would always be segregated. The girls would be put in one corner, the boys in one corner, and then education would happen. Why? In the real world, sexual education doesn't work like that, right? You're going to be exposed to a man, a woman, a male, female, everything together. And so have an open conversation. Today, if you and I right now being able to have this conversation is only because we've evolved.
Yeah.
Had I stayed at where I was, where my education system had gotten me, I would never be comfortable with millions of people listening to me. I remember the first time I made my first video for Instagram. Mind you, I was 30 years. I'd finished my career in gynecology, my education in gynecology, well. And here I was, a gynecologist, in front of the video. And you know what video did I make? What is a pap smear? Now, pap smear is a smear test that you take of the cervix.
Yeah.
For that, I demonstrated with a model the uterus, the cervix, and the opening, the vagina, from where I put the speculum and the spatula in. It went online. I got great reviews from the today's generation. My mother called me. She was alive then. She called me. She said, if you are my daughter, you're going to put this video down within 10 minutes.
Wow.
And she was a woman of substance. She spoke about women empowerment. She's a great woman. And I told her, I said, Mama, what are you talking about? You've made me confident. You brought me here. And she said, no, your brothers saw it and they said she's showing a vagina online and she's talking about sexual parts. And
Wow.
I kept the phone down. I thought about it for 10 minutes because my mother's opinion meant everything to me.
Exactly.
So the first thing was, it was my first video. I questioned myself. She said, you won't get a single patient ever. Nobody will ever respect you as a gynecologist in India if you want to work. I kept the phone down. And I said, you know what? If today I take down this video, I will lose the purpose why I became a gynecologist. I will lose the purpose why I wanted to come into this field. I'm ready to face whatever follows. I will not take it off. That was the only time my mother and I did not speak for 3 whole weeks.
Wow.
And then she saw the response that I got from Instagram. And I always say very proudly, the first 50 patients that I saw, my own patients in my own personal OPD, were through Instagram, who trusted me because of the education I provided online, not because of the college I studied from or the hospital I was sitting at. I gave my first few consults online on Zoom because those were the times of COVID. And they came to me only because of the knowledge that I was giving them and the non-judgmental approach that I was following towards this.
Yeah. And about what you explained to me, what frustrates you the most?
What frustrates me the most is silencing women till today.
What do you mean?
So I'll tell you honestly, So these are things that when I talk to people, they find it interesting. I have done it without even realizing. So I have my consulting room and there's a tiny little space where I do my sonographies. Earlier, I used to allow the male partner or the mother-in-law, the mother who'd come, to be in the room while I was scanning the patient. Once or twice, when the patient entered the scanning chamber and I pulled the curtain, she signaled to me that she wanted to tell me something but not in front of them.
Oh, I see.
And then I realized that 80% of the females who walk into the consulting room with me, with their partners, husbands, mother-in-laws, fathers, mothers, are scared to speak in front of them because the real problem is going to come out only after they leave. So now I've made it a protocol. If the patient is confident enough to come to me alone, I let the patient come to me and sit in front of me for 5 minutes by themselves. And then I call the partner in. If they've been bullied into coming in or walking in with their partner, or later on when they find comfort with me, they want to share something more, I give them enough windows where they can speak to me. And you'll believe me not, there are so many things that come in when the person who's accompanying the patient leaves, and then they come in, and then they'll talk about violence. They'll talk about sexual abuse.
Oh, wow.
They'll talk about basic things that have been denied to them. They'll talk about a simple vaginal infection that they've had for 6 months, but the male partner refused to get her to a doctor because he was scared that she'll be diagnosed with a sexually transmitted infection, which will lead to him.
Yeah.
And then a stigma will come on him. So he let her suffer. She's bled, she's itching, she's scratching. And then she's like, you know what, he just didn't let me come. So I just feel, especially as a female gynecologist, a doctor who really specializes in female health, we have to make this we have to start having an open communication. So we, whether as friends, as parents, as people who are educating, need to start telling the younger generation there is no taboo question, there is no right or wrong, there is no correct way, and there's nothing that you've done that cannot be spoken about, cannot be sought advice for, or cannot be repaired. Whether it's medically, psychologically, whichever way, you have to tell the youth today, if you've been there, so have we. Just because we are sitting here doesn't mean that we faced it or we, channelized it the right way. We struggled through it and we somehow reached. But you don't have to follow that path. We can guide you in a better way. We can treat you at the right time. And we can, control things before they get escalated to a certain level.
Yeah, and today there's much more information. So that's why I'm also happy to have this conversation, because I think this is a topic where these conversations need to be amplified to reach more people. Now I'm curious, maybe can you share some examples of questions that women come to you that they are afraid to ask? What are some common questions that they are afraid to ask?
So the commonest question in India, because virginity is still given a lot of value, and they believe that virginity is a virtue that a woman should have, and if she's not a virgin, she's impure, she's dirty.
Oh, wow.
So young girls, when they come to me, they're like, doctor, if we ever become sexually active, will our hymen rupture? And if we don't want the hymen to rupture and we want the hymen to stay, what can we do? And then there'll be adult women who will come, say in their 30s, and be like, but I've lost my virginity and I'm getting married and I'm not going to bleed in my first intercourse. So they'll know that I'm not a virgin and my in-laws will curse me. So can I get a hymenoplasty done? Now the answers to all of this is, firstly, a hymen is a thin film which doesn't get ruptured. It just sort of, it's like an elastic, so it gets torn, and it can get torn with any physical activity like horse riding, swimming, running, dancing, anything whatsoever. Some people might have such a thin hymen that it may not even exist. So even if it hasn't really gotten torn, the first intercourse will not tear it and there'll be no bleeding. And then sometimes you can bleed even after the hymen is torn. So firstly, it's time to question the concept of virginity and the virtue of virginity. Secondly, we have to understand hymen is no benchmark for that, if at all you want to believe in that virtue. The hymen is no benchmark. Having said that, if for your own pleasure and for your own happiness you want to recreate the hymen, you can. Because I also practice in cosmetic gynecology. There are ways to do an hymenoplasty. Do I vouch for it? Do I talk about it? No, I don't. But if you want to get it done, as an empowered woman, you should know it is available. Do you need it? In my opinion, not at all. So that's one of the questions they ask. The other questions they ask is, will a man know looking at my vagina that I've had sex? Because again, they're so scared. So they believe that the vaginal hole will become loose or their vulva will change shape, or, bizarre questions like, our hips will become broader after we've had sex. So now we are scared, we were active sexually and now, we're getting an arranged marriage. So can we do something to tighten our vagina? And these are all insecurities. There are sometimes young girls walk in and they're like, I want medicines to increase the size of my breasts. Wow. Or my one breast is smaller than the other one. And then you have to tell them, firstly, it's physiological, it's normal. Just like how your left hand is different from your right hand slightly, it's just like that. And they're like, no, but and then of course is the whole industry of porn and the modeling industry, which has, made women as stereotypes. It has to be perfect. The woman's body has to be like this. And that's what these girls walk in with. They walk in with tremendous amount of shame, of body dysmorphia. Body dysmorphia is something that we are dealing with so much. And
what is it, body dysmorphia?
Just not being sure of how you look physically.
Wow.
So a thin person thinking that he or she is fat. A fat person thinking he or she is not only fat but also short. Or a supposedly perfect woman still thinking she's absolutely imperfect, because every time she looks in front of the mirror, she's like, no, you know what? Today I'm looking slightly fat from here. Today I have an extra zit. And you won't believe it, body dysmorphia today is getting so common.
Wow.
Because unfortunately, we pay so much attention to what is outside than what is inside. And it's just getting worse because, like I always say, social media has so much of its plus points where we can impart this education, but it also then has its limitations where we are seeing so much and then we are comparing ourselves to this make-believe perfect life that's shown. And so I always tell my patients, me being an influencer, my patients walk up to me so many times. They're like, "Doctor, how do you manage? You're always so happy, you're always so chirpy. You're working 16 hours a day." And I'm like, but the times that I'm crying, I don't switch on my camera and cry. At that time, my camera is off because I'm devastated. I'm disheveled, I'm sitting in a corner, I'm weeping. You don't see that part. And when I finally come back on camera, I want to give you strength. So then I slap some makeup, I drink some water, and then I'm like, hey. So it's okay to be vulnerable and okay to say that, no, everybody has their terrible days. I get sick too as a doctor. I have gynecological issues as well. I'm 33, married for 11 years. I'm an infertility specialist. The first question that I'm asked is, doctor, if you are such a good doctor, why aren't you having a baby? They're brutal.
Wow.
I've had at least 100 patients walk up to me and be like, so do you also have a condition and you're not being able to have a child? I have frozen my embryos. I'm choosing my time to, whenever I want to become a mother because of my career growth, the way my husband and I have decided my career. But I always think of it. What if I genuinely had a problem? So even patients lack empathy there, they come to us and they're like, you've been married for 10 years. What is the issue you are going through? Which IVF specialist is treating you? And I'm like, no, there's no issue with me. But well, yes, I understand where the question is coming from. So, your vulnerability is something that we have to all warm up to a little bit, whether as doctors or as patients. Start treating each other as human beings first. Then the conversation will flow automatically.
Yeah. So it looks like there's a lot of basic information that it's not available. People don't know, and that generates a lot of decisions that are not well done. But also the making it like social media, and they make everything look so perfect. And then people go to you thinking like, okay, because I'm not like that what the society expects, there's a lot of impacts on themselves, like psychological impacts, right? I think looks like there's a lot of misconception. What is one, let's make two, what are two myths about sex that you would like to burst here today?
Myths about sex, oh my God, that is a long, long list. One thing that I want to tell the younger generation, you have to practice safe sex. So that's not a myth, that's a fact. So a myth becomes when your cool man walks up to you and say, oh, I'm perfect at the pull-out game. There's nothing being perfect at the pull-out game. Either you're going to end up getting pregnant or you're going to get a sexually transmitted infection. So unless and until you're not sure of wanting to when you want to have that baby, or you're in a monogamous relationship wherein you're sure of your partner and yourself, be protective of your own body. So use that barrier contraception, use the condom, be safe, and then have as much fun and do whatever you want to, explore whatever you want to explore. But do not have this myth that unprotected sex can be safe just because my partner has experience. No. If it's unprotected, it is going to be unsafe. That is one thing. The second thing that I think more than myth, I want to make the viewers aware of is the HPV vaccine, the human papilloma vaccine.
What is it?
It's the vaccine against the virus which causes carcinoma of the cervix, CA cervix, which is one of the most common cancers all over the world.
Oh, wow.
And one of the commonest ones in India. And it's the only cancer that is preventable. There is no cancer other than cervical cancer which is preventable. So if girls and boys get the vaccination at the right time, it can prevent you from cancer to above 90% and above.
Wow.
And it's just 3 vaccines. So we get so many injections with this that you just have to get 2 vaccines. If you're under 14 years, if you're above 14 years, you have to get 3 shots. Anybody till the age of 45 years. Even if you end up getting a sexually transmitted infection, even if you get up contracting the human papilloma virus, it will not lead to the cervical cancer or significantly reduce the risk. So this is something we gynecologists have been in talks with the government of India. Hopefully soon we'll get it in the immunization schedule.
Yeah.
In some places in the West it has come in. But in India and in most of the countries, it's easily available. You can go and talk to your gynecologist about the vaccine and get it put. So one myth that I want to bust here is that the vaccine is not unsafe. It doesn't lead to infertility. It doesn't cause anything. The only thing it will cause is save you from that horrible cancer that can lead to your life. And please, if you've not been vaccinated, you're under 45 years, whether man or woman, you should go and get yourself vaccinated.
Yeah. Okay. So these are two myths. A lot of our audience, either they are preparing to become parents or they are parents. What is your advice for them to have these kind of conversations with their kids?
Yeah, very, very, very good question. We as parents or as adults of the family, it could be your niece and nephew, it could be a younger friend, we have to be firstly open to any form of curiosity. Curiosity has no right or wrong. So there's going to be a thought in the mind. Now what action that thought leads to is going to be the knowledge that we impart.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. So what is sex is a question that a child, somebody may have that curiosity at the age of 8, some at 9, some at 11, some at 12. Now you knowing how much you want to tell the child at what point. Don't tell the child the wrong thing, but maybe too much information all in one is not necessary always. So if the child say, I would say if the child say at 8, the first time the child is wanted to ask you, how was I born? That's one of the first few questions. Maybe at 4 and 5 you wanted to tell that the fairy dropped you, that's your choice. But now at 8 and 9, you could be more scientific about it. You could be more medical. And you could talk about reproduction. There are 100 ways about talking about reproduction without making it cheap, without making it too sexual. And then slowly introduce the concept of sex, safe sex, being open. And I think one thing that as parents that you have to tell your children, the first person you should ask a question to is me. Not your teacher, not your friend. Any question, I don't think of any question that you cannot go and ask your parent. And believe me, even though I had an extremely supportive mother, I had a very broad-minded mother, back in the day societies were different and there were so many questions that we were scared to ask our parents. And did we not ask them? Of course we did. We went to school and then we asked that bad girl or the bad boy of the group or the big girl of the group. And then she told her version because she also knew a little bit. And then we got all these concocted weird ideas. And what we have to realize is sexual education doesn't only mean you're educating your child about sex. You're educating your child about treating the opposite gender and the same gender right. So when we are facing problems about rape, sexual assault, it's also because the correct sexual education at the correct time wasn't given. Curiosity wasn't given the right answers. And then it became a problem. Then it became a concocted, way of thinking. It became a perversion. Curiosity started and ended at perversion. And that's where education and sexual talk and if you care about your child, it has to be you. So why, I keep mentioning this in all my talks. Why did that anger me so much when that mother as a gynecologist shunned me for a 7-year-old for, not telling me about period? I was like, oh my God, this child within the next week is going to find out what that thing is.
100%.
And it's not going to be what it could have been from the mother, from a well-wisher, a gynecologist. It would have been such a beautiful conversation where I could have told that child, because now the child is 7. These days, girls are getting periods at 8 and 9. Puberty has become really, girls are start getting their periods earlier. He's going to see somebody bleed in school. He's not going to know what to do about it. However, if he'd educated that boy in the correct way, he would have known what to go and tell that girl. Maybe that girl didn't get the right education. This fellow would have walked up to that
Yeah.
girl and said, it's okay, you can go to the teacher, she's going to help you out, nothing's going to happen. And that's where we are creating a friendly, a good environment. I was born in a family where we belong to a very small town called Jabalpur in Madhya Pradesh. So getting out wasn't safe at night. And you know, initially when you start with your period, you don't know when you're going to get your period. The cycles are irregular. You don't have an idea about the dates. So you're all over the place. You're still figuring out. You're in that weird teenage. So every time I would start with my period, I would never have a sanitary napkin in my house. So I used to walk up to my brother and I used to tell him, you know, Bhaiya, I've started with my period and you need to go and get me my pad. Now, because we came from a family where, like I told you, my first education about what a period is, my father gave me when I was 8. I was never scared about asking these questions. I was honestly, when my cousin told me what sex was, and I felt, okay, maybe this is what sex is, but if everybody is doing it, it can't be this disgusting. Literally. At the age of 14, I was like, I'm finding it repulsive because of the way he told me.
Yeah.
And it's grossing me out. Now, I need to know from somebody who it didn't gross out.
Yeah.
So then I came back to my mother. And I said, Mama, I'm hating you right now. Literally, this was the conversation I had with her. I said, were we all born with such a dirty thing called as sex? And that's where I think my mother realized that, oh my God, you know, she's missed the boat and she should have spoken to me first. And then she said, no, beta, there's nothing dirty in it. Then she spoke about consent to me at that time.
Wow.
That's when she spoke to me about, you know, faith, trust. Sex is not bad if done with the right person, with communication, with consent. So I was lucky enough to be raised by a mother who told me these things at the age of 14. So when I was 18, when I went to college, I was very set with my boundaries. Did people not try to cross their boundaries with me? Being in India, I'm telling you one thing, I can vouch for it. Every single woman, exception to none, has been touched inappropriately at some point in their life, whether as a child, an adult, as a grown-up woman, or as an old woman. Nobody is going to die without being touched inappropriately. And I don't know about other countries, so I'm talking about mine. I was 21. I was touched inappropriately. And the first thought that came to my mind was, it's my fault. Because I was wearing a short dress. Now, my brothers had taught me that, you know, don't go to a place wearing short clothes. And here I was at 21, wearing short clothes, out with my friends. And so the first thought that came to me was, oh my God, the society is going to blame me. I'm the dirty girl. I woke up the next morning and I was like, no, I don't know where this is going to lead. This wasn't my fault. The way that guy touched me is not something that I allowed. I walked up to him, I confronted him. He obviously denied it. And he said, no, none of this had happened. The only thing that I did was I called up my mother and I told her this happened to me. If right now you're going to give me a big lecture, nothing major happened. Again, I questioned myself. I said, why am I, saying nothing major? I said, no, it was major, but it wasn't my fault. This is what has happened. My mother was quiet for 5 minutes. She said, you're fine. You're not unsafe, right? It wasn't your fault. Do you want us to go to the police for it? I said, no, I've managed it. I've had a conversation with that boy. He's not going to do it to me ever again. He's not going to do it to any other girl. But I wanted to speak to you and I wanted to take this out of my system, that just because a man touched me inappropriately, just because I was wearing a short dress, it wasn't my fault. It took me a lot of courage to do it. The only reason is because as a child, I was told that if you are touched inappropriately, it's somewhere your fault.
Wow.
Today, we have to tell our children, if it's a bad touch, no matter who it is, it's your uncle, it's your own father, it's your brother, it's your friend. If it's a bad touch, speak up against it because it's not your fault. And then it's the duty of us as adults, as responsible citizens, to give that child a safe space, a safe environment. And I think all of this gets so beautifully connected with one word as sexual health. Because the moment you make sex as an open conversation, there are so many doors that open up. And there are so many things that you can, then comes in knowledge, then comes in education, and then finally comes as aid, which is medical aid, information, knowledge. But till the time the conversation doesn't start, it'll always remain a taboo.
Yeah, Yeah. So what I like is that kids, they are curious, right?
Yes.
I think as a parents, what you say is allow kids to feel safe, to ask any question that they have around sex, and also make sure that the parents are the person that they go to get their answers. Otherwise, they will get their answers, right?
Exactly.
And even if they don't have their answers, it can have negative impacts because maybe they're going to get it from other sources. It's not the best, right? That's what you're saying.
Also, I'm saying as parents, we have to understand we don't know everything.
Exactly.
So keep your journey of knowledge and growth active as well.
Yeah.
So sometimes there'll be a question that your child will ask you.
Yeah.
At that point, your first answer may not be the best one.
Yeah.
So it's okay to tell your child, I'm going to read more about this.
Yeah.
I'm going to do my own research. I'm going to talk to a couple of my friends. I'm going to get back on this to you.
Yeah.
And then have a free-flowing conversation instead of shutting that child as, oh no, this is not right. Just because you were told as a child, this is not right. So I understand that maybe, again, coming back to menstrual health, maybe as when we were growing up at the age of 7, we were shunned at that point. Then, how did you ask about a period? It's grown-up stuff. You don't have to do the same thing. Just because your mother did it to you, you can question what your mother did to you. Change your foundation in order to make your child a better human.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
So good. Okay, so now let's talk about sex. And let's start by consent. Like, what are ways that couples can practice sex with consent?
So, to start with, I would always say, when you're starting off in a relationship, be as verbal as you can, be as demonstrative as you can, and be as clear as you can. So just because the girl smiled at you and you've been dating her for 3 months is not consent.
Okay.
Okay? Just because she came into the house with you, it's not consent. Just because she's sitting on your bed, it's not consent. She could be sitting on your bed because she thought you're going to watch a movie. Or maybe she sat on your bed thinking that she wants to explore a sexual encounter with you, but now has shied away or is not feeling comfortable, did not get the right aura from you and wants to say a no. A girl or a boy, whatever, whichever partner. A no is something we have to understand even if you've been married for 20 years. I tell my husband this, if we are fighting and if I'm telling you not right now, we need to clear this. It's not right now. Because at that point, I need that conversation first and vice versa. So consent, I think firstly, it's not a one-time thing. It's a repeated thing. You have to repeatedly ask. You have to repeatedly be okay and you have to respect boundaries no matter how long you've known that person for. And once you communicate and you understand and respect each other, I think sex, which once as that 14-year-old child that I thought was, oh my God, it was such a bad thing, can be such a beautiful thing, can be such a spiritual thing also, if I may say so, and can be so liberating if done in the right way, with the right people, the right communication and consent.
Wow.
So when people tell me I'm talking about dirty things on the internet, I just tell them that's because your mind is dirty.
Yeah, exactly.
It's your outlook that if I said semen and you thought it was dirty, it was that same semen that led to your child being born. So I'm sorry, it's not dirty for me at all. So, and if I spoke about the vagina and you wanted me to, so another very funny thing, I don't know how it was for you when you were growing up. For us, we couldn't use these words as children. Like, we weren't allowed to call a vagina or a penis. So we would have like Hindi names, like, or like shame.
Like what?
Dirty place.
Okay.
In Hindi, we used to call it gandi cheeze, like that. Or shame. So shame, shame is like, like that.
Really?
Yeah, so we were never allowed to use these words, like they were dirty, bad words.
Yeah.
And now I will not be unhinged to say this. I came to know the difference of a vulva and a vagina in my first year of medical school.
Wow. Yeah.
Though I had biology as a subject, English as a language I spoke, parents as doctors, I thought vagina, the outer part, the lips that you see, the labia majora, minora, the pubic, everything is the vagina. And when I got to know, oh, that is the vulva, And the inside, the canal is the vagina. So technically what the hair that is there, what you shave, what you trim, it's not in the vagina. That's the vulva. And I was like, oops, I didn't know this. And then one of the first few videos that I made on Instagram was what is the difference between a vulva and a vagina. Again, I got a lot of thrashing for this. You are saying vagina openly like this. I said, yes, because vagina owners don't know what a vagina is.
Yeah.
So then coming back to why vaginismus happens. They don't know what a vagina is. They've never explored themselves because it's the dirty thing. It's shame. So they've never touched themselves. They don't know what masturbation is. Masturbation, according to them, is a sin. It's dirty. And now they've suddenly been shoved into an arranged marriage. They're facing a man for the first time. The man comes, they think of him as a predator. They don't know what he wants. And they shut. And that is vaginismus right there for you.
Oh, yeah.
So if these children were told what a vagina is, and it's not a dirty thing, it's not shame. Were taught how to clean it. Or it's a self-cleansing organ and you just have to clean the vulva. What soap to use, what not to use, how to use the period product. They would be very comfortable.
Yeah.
And then when at whatever age they had their first sexual urges, if they were spoken to about masturbation, if they were spoken to about self-love, self-exploration, maybe it would have never reached to perversion or dirty thoughts. Then it would not have been, it's a dirty thing.
Yeah.
Because it's not a dirty thing. We've made it into a dirty thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Wow. But maybe now, let's go a bit, let's now talk about like sex between in a couple. What is one thing that women should know about men when it comes to sex that will help them in their relationship?
So, can I tell you one thing? As a gender, unfortunately, females, I think, are allowed to be vulnerable and males are still warming up there.
Okay.
So, when a man says, I'm not being able to perform today in bed, or I'm not getting an erection, or I'm having premature ejaculation, we as women have to be extremely understanding of that, because just how vaginismus exists, and it's a real thing, erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation, anxiety during sex, which is known as performance anxiety, these are real things. When your male partner is going through depression, is going through anxiety, he may have a transient loss of, erection. He may not be able to get an erection at all. Instead of suddenly saying, oh, have you stopped loving me? Have you lost interest in this relationship?
Wow. Yeah.
And, or saying, oh, you're just not good for me any longer. That's when maybe your male partner is going to be hesitant in seeing a doctor, because now females are still coming out. Get your male partner to a sexual health expert. We'll figure it out. There is medication, there's counseling again. So for me, I think this thing I'll speak for the men, that allow them to be vulnerable as well. Because they are human beings also. Because men have always been shown to be, oh my God, they have to be this larger than life, the macho man. It's okay. Vulnerability exists in both genders and it's absolutely fine.
Yeah, I really like it. That's great. So now let's go to the other side. What do you think men should know about women that will help in their sexual life?
That women also orgasm, and climaxing for women is as important as climaxing for men. 90% of the men think, I have climaxed, so the sex is over. Just because not every woman necessarily ejaculates, which is known as squirting. So it's less common how most of the men will ejaculate. So we know that, this is what climaxing for a man is. For a woman, it's not that evident. But she knows when she's climaxed and she's going to be very, communicative about it. So communicate with your partner. Understand if climaxing and orgasm is important for you, it's equally important for her. So concentrate on the needs of her also in bed. Focus on her orgasms also, not just yours. Another point that I want to add to this, Rodrigo, before I, talk about it. Infertility is also another thing that then they face, because sometimes what happens is everything is perfect, but because they're not being able to penetrate, the ejaculate doesn't reach the uterus. And then the whole, another taboo gets added. Oh my God, I can't perform in bed and I'm infertile.
Wow.
So firstly, I want to say, again, stop blaming yourself. Stop trying to look at the internet and try to, self-treat yourself. There can be hormonal imbalances leading to it. There could be trauma leading to it. There could be an illness that is causing it. There could be a physical problem that could be causing it. Again, there are sets of doctors. We as infertility specialists look into it. Urologists look into it. General surgeons look into it. So we will guide you where to go depending on what problem it is. Most of the problems are curable. Most of them are. So if you are facing something like this, the first step that you have to take is seek professional help and then begin your journey from there.
Yeah. So what are the three things that the couple can do in order to improve their sexual life?
Communicate. That's the primary thing. Communication should never stop, whether it's the first day of your relationship, 5th year, 50th year. Keep asking what your partner wants. Experiment. I think what people forget is you'll get bored of the same food that you're eating. But you know that it has to be... So just infidelity or changing partners is not necessary. Being with the same partner but experimentating. Keeping it fun in bed. Maybe talking about what do you want? What do you want to explore? Do you want to go on a holiday? Do you want to do a vacation? Keep things exciting. Because we as human beings, we like excitement. Everyone to some or the other extent. You like it when a new restaurant is opened up. You like to try a new cuisine. So it's just like that. So communication, I think, is number one. Number two is experimentation. And number three is giving space. I think that is one thing that we undermine the most. So don't judge your partner if someday your partner actually, wants to watch porn. Or wants to spend some time with herself or himself. Because that's also a journey. Sometimes we meditate by ourselves, right? Sometimes we want to watch a movie by ourselves. It's not always that we want to watch a movie with our partner. Sometimes it's me time. So then sometimes exploring yourself sexually can also be your time. And you have to, so that's why I said communication, experimenting and spacing. You honor these three things, you'll have a good sex life.
What is your advice for people who have different libidos in the relationships?
Yeah, it's a great question. So libidos, the female might want more sex, the male might want less, or vice versa. Again, you have to talk at this point. It also may be transient for some time. So if you are, say, on antidepressants, if you're going through a certain phase in life, at that time, your sexual urge will come down. So you have to be aware of each other's situations. But yes, if you are in a partnership wherein it's remarkably different, your sexual desires and urges are always more and your partner's are always less, here's where you should take counseling and therapy. Your therapist will tell you if you need to go through to a medical specialist like a doctor, if there are certain hormonal imbalances or depression that you're showing or anything like that. If not, then you have to speak and meet midway. Then maybe if you like it, say 4 times in a week and she likes it 4 times in a month, maybe you have to come somewhere in between. So again, open communication and being respectful of each other's needs and desires. So not judging your female partner just because she wants more sex and just saying, oh, you just want this all the time. Can't you see any deeper? It's okay. That is her desire. That is what she wants. And vice versa. If your other partner doesn't want that much, then you have to understand and you have to amicably reach a point where both of you are happy. And so what is sustainable?
And what affects the different levels of libido?
See, sometimes it's also to do with person to person, okay? It's like saying, why does some person laugh more and some person laughs less? But a lot of times it's also to do with how you were brought up, the things you were exposed to, your overall personality type, Do you like communicating with people? Do you like having fun? Are you more experimentative as a person? And trust me, sexuality and the urge, the desires can vary from time to time. So there is no fixed rule that I was born with this amount of sexual urge and I'll die with this. No. So even for people, if you are frustrated with yourself also sometimes, you're like, why don't I feel the desire? Why can't I please my partner? Keep figuring out. Keep exploring by yourself, with your therapist, with your partner, and you'll eventually know what you like and you'll get there.
So you mentioned about like having like 4 times sex a week or in a month. Maybe can you tell us what is kind of normal or in the different age brackets, like say from 20, 30, 40, 50, what does a sexual life looks like in these different stages?
There is no normal,
Yeah.
first of all.
Yeah.
So a normal that might be for you may not be for me. Maybe the number of times I wanted to have sex at 16, maybe the same number of times somebody else wants to have sex at 60.
Okay.
So again, it's extremely personal, varies from person to person. Yes, from an individual person, the sexual desires peak and plateau at some points. So around puberty, when the hormonal surges happen, that's when suddenly the sexual desires, curiosity starts coming in. The reproductive time is when you want to be more sexually active, because that's where you're as a female, you're ovulating, your hormones are reaching all the top levels that they should. Then it's also near menopause, perimenopause, where you might get like these sudden bursts, because then there's a lot of fluctuation. So there'll be times when you'll be feeling really, really low and no desire at all, and then suddenly a lot of desire. But again, having said that, there's no hard and fast rule.
I see.
It can really vary from person to person, time to time, situation to situation. And then some people may be asexual. So that is also fine. So that's what I said. Anything from 0 to whatever amount is acceptable. It's just that you have an open communication with your partner and you say, this is what I'm comfortable with. This is the maximum or the minimum I can go to. Are you okay with it? And have a clear conversation. Just like how, in India, it's a very common thing when people, before getting married, ask, are you a vegetarian? Are you a non-vegetarian? Because it's a big thing. Let's start talking about this.
Yeah.
So that we're on the same page about that.
I was talking with a sexologist, and he told me there's a lot of couples today that they don't have sex. What can be the impacts of this in a relationship?
So, I'll tell you a very simple thing that I tell all my patients. Back in the day when we were growing up in a small town, it was a very, very normal norm for the entire family to sit together at the table and have lunch and dinner. Today, my husband and I have lunch and dinner together maybe 4 times in a month, which is Sundays. Now we've made it a rule in the house that we'll have dinner together no matter what. Lunches we can't, we're working. It's the same way because our lifestyles have become so hectic. It's become so busy that just like other things, we've stopped prioritizing our sex life also. But just like how I said that I had a conversation with my husband about eating together, believe me, I had a conversation about him about a sex life also, and so has he, So you have to understand that life is getting tougher, busier for all of us. But you don't stop to breathe. You don't stop to eat. You have to understand sex is one of the necessities that most of us have. Some of us won't, who are asexuals, but most of us have. And if your partner is saying that they are sexually starved, then treat it like they would be as they are starved with hunger. And respect it as much. And I'm not saying fight with them all the time, but on a Sunday morning, maybe sit down and be like, we take out time to watch a movie, right? We take out time to go to the bank to, put our bills in order. Or we go shopping. So we have to prioritize this and give us time. And then be patient with each other. Sometimes there can be underlying causes. So there could be something that is bothering your partner, which he or she has not been able to speak about. It's resentment. It's things that they're not being able to open up about. And that's where then couples therapy comes in. So be open about it. Sometimes the male partner may be conscious. He's conscious about not being able to get a proper erection. The female partner is conscious about her vaginismus. So then that's where a urologist, a gynaecologist. So there are specialities for everything. And today, one thing that we are lucky in, we are in a society where if you want help, there are enough people to give you help. You just need to seek it from the right sources.
So what you say, and I love your example with your husband, that, you never have meals together. Then you prioritize, okay, at least let's have one meal together, whatever it is. What you say is that sex life, it's important in a relationship.
Absolutely.
And it's also about prioritizing, right? And having conversations about it and exploring. And if there's any issue, talk about it and look for help, which you say there's a lot of help today available, right?
Absolutely.
Cool. Very cool. Yeah, also when we were researching, there are a lot of conversations about sex after having a child, when the vagina enlarges because of the child. What is the current situation and what couples can do about it?
Okay. So I would like to take it not after birth, but even during birth. So when the female gets pregnant, it varies. Some women, their sexual desires may increase and some may completely lose that desire. And they might be like, please don't touch me. As the partner, you have to be respective of A, what she wants, secondly, what the doctor has said. So if it's a low-risk pregnancy, the doctor is going to allow you to have normal sex and they're going to be like, it's absolutely fine. However, a placenta is low-lying, if you're at risk for a preterm labor, we are going to ask you not to have sex. So A, be respectful of that. Understand that if you are facing a certain issue, your partner is facing more, there's a baby growing inside of her. After she's given birth, whether it's a vaginal route or a C-section, everything takes time to come back to normal. So we say the first 40 days postpartum are the most crucial because at that time, everything is really sensitive and you have to let the body heal. Post that, after 6 weeks, after 3 months, after 6 months, your gynecologist is going to call you. She is going to check if it's a vaginal birth, the vagina, the stitches if we've taken an episiotomy, and if it's a C-section, we are going to check the stitches on the uterus, not just on the skin. And once we give a go-ahead that yes, you're fine, medically, your female partner is okay. But that's where then there's something massively known as postpartum depression, postpartum blues. So you have to be okay with what your partner wants. She's just started breastfeeding. She's put on weight. She's struggling with her weight. She's struggling with her sleep. She's struggling with her child, a new responsibility that is added. So you have to be open. Does the vagina enlarge permanently? No. Does it increase? Does it become a little? It's an elastic, so it's definitely going to increase a little in size. So if you're going to pressurize your female partner, oh, I want you to feel just how you did before the vaginal birth, then please don't subject her to that. So firstly, be very proud of your body. And just like everybody's skin ages differently, your vagina will age differently. Somebody with 3 children may have an extremely tight vagina and somebody with no children may have a loose vagina because that's how genetically they were blessed with.
Yeah.
So be proud of it and be confident of it and let nobody tell you that you're loose or tight or whatever. As long as you are enjoying your body and you're comfortable with your body, there's nobody that should be able to tell you. Your urges, antepartum, which is during pregnancy and postpartum, will vary and will take time to come to normal if at all they do. And you have to be communicative and you have to be okay and not feel guilty about it.
When I was researching for this conversation, I saw that WHO, the World Health Organization, mentions that worldwide, 1 out of 6 people have issues with subfertility.
Yes, correct.
You like it?
Yes.
Yeah. Help us to understand what is the problem today in terms of subfertility.
So see, we know the stress is increasing.
Yeah.
We use it very casually, but it's a fact. Stress has an impact on a lot of organs in our body, like the heart, the mind, just like that. It's having an impact on the fertility.
Yeah.
Having said that, we also are choosing to have babies at a later age because females are now equally or more oriented sometimes professionally. We are taking time to sort out our finances. We just don't want to be like our parents, a mistake happened and then we lived with it. We are more aware and we want to have children when we are ready for it. So that's one of the reasons. The early 20s is obviously reproductive life of a person is limited. That's a fact. Now that's not a myth.
Yeah.
A woman is only born with a certain number of eggs. And the eggs will only decrease with age. That is also not a myth. It's a fact. So arguing that will I be more fertile at 25 and less at 35 is stupid. Every woman is going to be more fertile at 25 and less fertile at 35. And her fertility may vary as per her personal fertility index. Whatever it's been, if it was 100%, say at 23, it's definitely going to be, say, 50% at 35. Oh. But do we cry about that and we start telling the girls that had children faster? Absolutely not. There's something known as egg freezing. Cryopreservation, just how you put money in the FD for your old age, freeze your eggs. For men, get your semen analysis done, figure out how your sperm count is doing. If it is, with men, you're lucky that it sort of, semen can be worked on. So the sperm counts can improve. Every 3 months, there's a new cohort of sperms that come in and we can work on it with medications, etc. So take the medications. You want to freeze your semen. Be aware of what are the lifestyle things that we do that are causing subfertility. So smoking being one of them. Smoking in any form is the worst thing that you can do for your fertility. Smoking causes cancer. Cancer can happen any which way. That's another thing. Smoking is one of the leading causes of infertility in men and women both.
Wow, really?
And any form of smoking, whether it's vaping, marijuana, shisha, anything. No form of smoke is good for your sperm or egg. So, to be aware of what your lifestyles are, to make necessary lifestyle changes, take the right decision at the right time. So, if you're planning to have babies at a later stage, you can freeze your eggs or embryos depending on whether you have a partner or not. And be in touch with your fertility consultant. So even if you're taking time, every 6 months, I would say, go get your blood test done. There's something known as an anti-Mullerian hormone, AMH, in women, which tells you about an approximate how good the quality of your eggs are or where your fertility is at. So that gives you a rough estimate of how much time you have, can you still wait, etc., etc. Get a sonography done, see if everything is fine with your body. So make fertility a part of your routine lifestyle, just like you would go and get a routine checkup for your teeth or, for your heart. You should control your fertility and not fertility control you. And go to your fertility expert, see your options and act on it. That way you are comfortable, your partner is comfortable, and yet whenever you want to have babies, you get them.
Yeah, I love that. So don't feel the pressure that
you
need to conceive
but
just
be
because
informed.
of age. Yeah. So let's now go into each one of them. So for what are the benefits and what is the process for a woman who wants to freeze their eggs?
So the biggest profit is you have control on your reproductive life.
Yeah.
So when you're in your, say, early 20s or late 20s and you've decided that I'm not marrying anytime soon or I'm not planning to have a child anytime soon, that's when your reproductive age is at its peak. So in your probably mid or late 20s is the best time, I would say, because early 20s you're too young. Go to your fertility expert. If you don't have the money, then even 30s is not a bad time. Talk to them. Tell them you're not planning to have a baby for whatever years you're not having. They're going to give you the best options, give you certain injections. It's an almost painless procedure. And they withdraw the eggs just like how you withdraw blood. Like that, under anesthesia. We are trained to do it. And we freeze it. So we freeze it in a cryopreservation bank, just like how the bank keeps your money. And then whenever 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years later, you find a partner, you want to use a donor sperm and you want to make babies out of it, you're ready for it. It's great even if you are somebody who wants to go and, you're going to go under chemotherapy. So cancer therapy or chemotherapy has an impact on the ovaries. So it's a great option to freeze your eggs before that and then go ahead for it.
Well, tell us what's the cost? Can be the cost of that?
So it depends on a lot of things, from the city to the injections used, but it can range from anywhere starting from 1 lakh Indian rupees, can go up to 3 to 3.5 lakh Indian rupees. That all depends on which center you are at, what injections have been used, the amount of eggs that were taken out, and the duration that you're freezing it for.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. We cover the woman. Now, when it comes to men, how can we increase the quality of our sperm?
Eat healthy. So have a good diet. Diet impacts fertility. So processed food, avoid processed food. Keep your BMI normal. So an underweight and overweight, both for males and females, is bad for your fertility. So keep your weight in check, be healthy. Quit smoking of any form. Alcohol can be restricted, but overconsumption of any addictive substance is bad. Get an examination done. Get a semen analysis done. Talk to your doctor if you have a problem. Stay healthy. Play some kind of sport or some activity, gym or whatever it is, for at least 45 minutes in a day. And do not ignore your sleep. We human beings need 8 hours of sleep in a day. None of us are getting it. But try to get as much as you can. Sleep is very important for any of your systems to work normally.
Yeah. So do you see that the quality of the sperm is declining?
Yes, severely, because of the stress, because of the
that.
lifestyle.
Yeah. What kind of foods can help to improve the quality of the semen?
So see, there are basically, you have to understand how the semen is formed.
Yeah.
It is rich in nutrients. So anything which is rich in micronutrients, vitamins, is going to help in indirect better sperm production. Also, certain times we have to give supplements. So there are supplements like, there are a lot of supplements that are in the market and which have the specific need or the specific things that are needed for the semen production to become normal. Like ubiquinol, carnitine, there are a lot of things. I won't get into the technical details, but then, so if you're suffering with a low sperm count, go to your doctor so that along with the diet, we can also give you supplementation.
I see. So when it comes to in terms of technology, in terms of fertility, what is now the latest technology? If we look ahead in terms of fertility, because I can see something that it's a huge problem according to WHO, and it's going to continue. So what is in terms of technology? What's happening?
See, we've come a long way, and there's a long way to go. I'll always say, because we are still researching. It's the most researched arena in medical education right now. But we've come a long way. So even somebody who has no sperms in their ejaculate, in the semen, can have their genetic child.
Wow.
Because many a times, the sperm is being produced but is getting blocked in the testes and it's not coming out in the semen. It's an obstruction. So then there's something known as a TISA or a microtissue. Basically, it's a procedure that we do. We put the needle in the testes and then we can get the sperm.
Wow.
Then inject those sperms in the egg of the female partner, which is known as intracytoplasmic sperm injection, ICSI.
Yeah.
Form beautiful babies, put them in the female's uterus, and there you go, you have a genetic child. I think it's beautiful because back in the day, a man without semen or a woman who had a low egg count, that's it. They couldn't do anything. They won't have babies.
Yeah.
And if you really want to have a baby, then it's a very beautiful thing when you can have your own genetic child.
Beautiful. So what it means, like the problem is increasing, but also the solution. There's more and more.
Oh, we are
solutions.
researching. Yes. And it's only going to get better with time.
Very good. Okay, we are coming to the end of our beautiful conversation. It was so good. And I have only one last question to you. What is one thing that you want people to remember from this conversation?
Don't be ashamed of yourself, your body, or your curiosities. Ask questions. Seek help. Especially as a female, go to your gynecologist. Don't miss your annual checkups. Don't take yourself for granted. Don't take your partner for granted. Keep communicating. Keep working on yourself. Nothing is impossible.
Wow. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think it's very inspiring, the work that you're doing, speaking up and talking about this important topic. So please continue to do it, and we'll be here amplifying your voice because it needs.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me over.